Here are some of the best robberies ever done. Just wait until you find out how one crime was solved because of a sandwich left behind. Number 12, Banco Central. This robbery at Banco Central remains the biggest bank heist in Brazil. Allegedly, it involved at least 25 people who planned it out intensely for 3 months. And in 3 months, they came up with one of the most ingenious operations. They rented a building near the bank, posing as a landscaping company. That way, it didn't tip off the neighbors when they saw trucks carrying dirt and other sorts of debris every day from the building. However, the debris was actually coming from a tunnel that the group was digging that led right to Banco Central's vault. On August 6, 2005, the group finally hit the jackpot. As usual, they transported the $71 million hard cash in their trucks like they would with the debris they dug. And since it was a weekend, this mega heist wasn't discovered until Monday. To this day, much of the cash remains unaccounted for. Just a few of the gang members were ever arrested. Number 11, Dunbar Armored Facility. The Dunbar Armored robbery remains the largest cash robbery in the U.S. The amount stolen in 1997 was close to $19 million in cash. But adjusted for inflation, it's slightly over $30 million in 2020. The heist is also notable since anyone that participated in the robbery were all caught, all thanks to one of them being too reckless with the cash. Much of the heist's success can be pinned on Dunbar Armored's employee Alan Pace. Pace took the time to write down every security detail of the premises, and he shared it with his accomplices. Coincidentally, he actually got fired just a day before the robbery after he was caught messing around with the vehicles. When they decided to do the robbery, they knew exactly what to do and where to go. Pace knew exactly the right bags to pick, which are the bags with the highest denominations and non-sequential bills. The entire operation was over in just roughly half an hour. They made a clean escape, and it seemed like they'd completely get away. They laundered the cash through various things such as new homes, cars, and even a Texas business venture. But their freedom and newfound fortune were immediately cut short just 2 years later. One of the robbers stupidly gave out a stack of cash to his real estate broker with the original currency bands on the cash, raising suspicions. Number 10, Carlton Cans. In 2013, a number of French cities were hit with a whole bunch of jewelry heists. The Carlton Hotel exhibition was one of them, and by far the largest. It also happened right under everyone's noses in broad daylight. The daring thief turned up with his face covered with a hat and a scarf, all the while holding a pistol at guests and exhibitors at a private hair salon. The jewels were simply put on display by Israeli billionaire Lev Leviev. Interestingly, none of the guards at the exhibit were armed, so the robber peacefully made away with his loot that was estimated to be worth $136 million. To this day, not much progress has been made in their recovery, at least not in the public eye. No one knows who the lone gunman was and where he took the jewels. A $1.3 million reward was offered for anyone with information about the stolen jewels, but nothing has turned up yet. There were speculations that the heist might have been orchestrated by a high-profile member of the Pink Panthers, Milan Popovic, who had just escaped from a jail a few days prior. Number 9, Northern Bank. Carried out just days before Christmas in 2004, this robbery is among the biggest so far in British history. Instead of using their smarts, these thieves went for the good old-fashioned method of intimidation to get what they wanted. Posing as Northern Ireland police officers, the robbers abducted 2 Northern Bank officials and their families a day before the big robbery. The gang kept the 2 families hostage, but released the family members that were bank officials. They ordered the 2 to go to work as usual the next day. On the day of the robbery, the 2 bank officials remained at the bank premises after hours and let in members of the gang. From that point on, it was early Christmas for the robbers. They gained access to the bank's cash storage room. This room had a much larger amount of cash ready for ATMs in preparation for the festivities. For the robbers, it was just a matter of transporting the cash to a nearby waiting van. As soon as they got the cash, the gang released the abducted family members of the bank employees. Not a single one of the thieves have ever been convicted for the robbery. Number 8, Hatton Garden Safe Deposit. The April 2015 burglary of the Hatton Garden Safe Deposit in London was widely speculated as the largest in British history. The loss quoted in court was £14 million, but some media sources quote it to be well over 200 million pounds. A major part of this operation was all about drilling through walls and vaults. First, to access the premises, the gang drilled through a wall and then another wall that took them to the building's elevator shaft. From the elevator shaft, they traveled down to the building's basement using ropes. Once they were in the basement, they grabbed the drill again, this time drilling through the vault to where the jewelry was. Aside from the jewels, the gang managed to make away with millions in cash and gems by going through a total of 73 deposit boxes. The recovery has been tough, as just 4.5 million pounds of the stolen assets have been recovered as of 2020. Number 7. Knightsbridge Security Deposit. Pulling off a heist worth close to $100 million requires meticulous planning. But for the 1987 Knightsbridge Security Deposit robbery in London, this wasn't the case. Considering it's one of the biggest bank robberies in history, the theft was executed quite casually. On that day, the two main suspects entered the bank as any other customer would. They requested to open an account for a safe deposit box, and that's when their plan kicked in. Once they were into the vault, they drew their guns and held the bank's occupants hostage. Immediately, they put a close sign on the bank's door while letting in other heist members to assist with the operation. The gang managed to open a majority of the safe deposit boxes and made away with close to $98 million in cash and other valuable items. However, a fingerprint discovered at the bank led the police to Valerio Vici, already notorious bank robber before this robbery. Several of his accomplices were arrested, but he escaped to Latin America to enjoy the loot. He was later arrested, though, when he went back to England just so he could ship a Ferrari Testarossa he left behind. Was that worth the 22 years in prison he got? Number 6. Antwerp Diamonds. The Antwerp diamond heist is one of the most popular and largest jewelry robberies ever. It's been called the heist of the century at that time, but bigger jewelry robberies have happened since. It remains one of the most famous diamond heists to date because of how it was stolen with an advanced security system. The vault housing the jewels was protected by infrared heat detectors, a magnetic field, a seismic sensor, and a high-tech combination lock. That's it? Oh no, there's more. On top of all this, there were 18-inch steel doors to get through. Maybe the owner watched too many Ocean's 11 movies? However, on Valentine's Day of 2003, a gang led by Leonardo Notarbartolo breached this high-tech security system in Belgium's Diamond District. They had a $100 million payday in diamonds and other precious jewels. In addition to getting through such an advanced security system, they also had enough time to change the security tapes to avoid being identified. Despite all that, guess how they got caught? They left behind a half-eaten sandwich. That was more than enough DNA for investigators to use. After months of chasing across multiple countries, the group of 5 was arrested. The jewels, however, were never recovered. Number 5. Dar-es Salaam's Investment Bank. The Dar-es Salaam bank robbery in Baghdad is one of the biggest ever, but so little is known about the theft. With over $280 million in U.S. cash gone, the heist hardly received any news coverage. Local police authorities couldn't even seem to agree on what really happened. The morning after the robbery, employees of the bank came to work simply only to find the doors unlocked and the vault wide open with the money completely gone. Guards that normally slept at the bank had also disappeared. The local police claimed the heist was orchestrated by the 2 guards. The interior of the ministry, on the other hand, insisted that the cash was stolen by at least 3 people. None of the stolen cash has ever been recovered. Also, none of the people involved have ever been found or arrested. Number 4. Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. If you had over $500 million worth of art, you'd have really good security, wouldn't you? Apparently, the security situation at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, the security was extremely lacking for the amount of value inside the museum. The security measures were at least on par to that of regular museums, but improvements were needed for a museum with so many valuable collectibles. Somehow, the museum couldn't afford the improved measures, and making major renovations to the museum was against the late owner of the art's works, Isabella Stewart Gardner's wishes. In 1990, during St. Patrick's Day, 2 thieves disguised as police officers stole 13 priceless art pieces from the museum. The heist was so clean that the thieves left no evidence whatsoever. The museum has offered as much as $10 million for information that leads to the recovery of the paintings. The theft is unsolved to this day, and the frames where the paintings once hang remain empty as an homage to the missing pieces. Number 3. Securitas Depot. This heist remains the biggest known cash robbery in British history. In the world, it's dwarfed by only 2 other cash heists. In total, a little over £53 million were stolen back in February of 2006. The cash could have been much more, but the robbers actually ran out of time and space to carry away all the cash. According to reports, they had to abandon over £150 million. Here's an interesting fact. This robbery was masterminded by ex-UFC fighter Lee Murray. So how'd they do it? 2 of the thieves, dressed as police officers, they abducted the manager and his family before taking them to the cash depot. Here, they tied up the staff members and forced the manager to open cash cages. The whole operation took slightly over an hour with none of the hostages harmed. Now, too bad for the robbers, most of them were caught, with the first arrest coming just a few days after the robbery. A considerable part of the loot has also been recovered over the years. Number 2. Berliner Volksbank. Not much is known about this 2013 heist or the people that did it. Even the $10 million lost is just an estimate. However, how the robbers accessed the bank is known. They dug a 120-foot tunnel into the bank's vault from a nearby garage they had rented. After reaching the wall of the bank vault, they drilled a huge hole to the bank's steel wall. They opened close to 100 safety deposit boxes, stealing millions of dollars in cash and other valuables. Their tunnel was discovered after they set it on fire. This was done apparently to destroy any DNA evidence. Very little is known of who did it or what happened to the thieves. Number 1. Central Bank of Iraq. While most heists depend on smarts and a bit of violence, the Central Bank of Iraq was different. It was more of a withdrawal ordered by the highest authority in the country back then. Yep, Saddam Hussein. This was a few hours before the US invasion of Iraq. Saddam was probably sensing defeat even before the operation, so he gave his son a signed note. On it was an order for the bank to give his son a little over $1 billion worth of cash total, 900 million in US dollars and 100 million in euros. And the bank did just that. For close to 5 hours, Saddam's son, along with other unnamed individuals, transported the staggering amount of US dollars to an unknown location in vehicles. According to the New York Times, at least $650 million of the stash was recovered in one of Saddam's former palaces. Not much is known about the remaining amount. Here's what's next.